Okay, you guys are talking about teenagers. I got a couple teenage questions here. It says, I'm going to do two in one here. It says, how should teenagers be disciplined? And then someone else wrote in and said, our kids, as our kids get older, things get more complicated with discipline. What does parenting a teenager look like when our kids are too old for an old-fashioned spanking? And then are there differences with boys and girls in that aspect?
You go on. Me?
Yeah.
There's a
I was
lot
I was
there.
away from home a lot of times, but
There's
I
a
know
lot
that I
there.
get a few phone calls, but
I
most of the
think
time you handled it.
I think what I can, and I certainly didn't do it all right all the time either. So, but they knew we were a team, so I knew that I had his back and he had mine, and so that helped a lot. We tried to be consistent with the way we did with one. We tried to follow along the same line, and we didn't, well, you get to not have this. And no, if they didn't do certain things, we tried to say, okay, well, there's going to be some consequences to this. But one of the things that comes to mind is that they didn't push the envelope too often because of him. They knew that whatever I asked him to do, I said, you can be angry. You don't have to agree, but don't ever be disrespectful. So when that, and there were, I want to say there was 2 or 3, 4 times, I don't know, there wasn't too many times that I can honestly say that they were disrespectful to us. When those times came, we took care of business right then. What do you mean? We didn't hit them. We did that when they were toddlers, and that 1 to 5, probably the spankings a lot more. And I agree. I don't think you can spank unless they want to get physical, because I've had women tell me that too. Well, then get a pan and hit them over the head, I guess. But I know that kids today are out there where they think they can do stuff like that and push a mother around or push a dad around. And what do you do? I think personally, I'd be on my face a lot praying for wisdom and how to handle it. And but I know there's lines, and if they don't want to obey, then depending on the age, what age are we talking about? Up to what age?
I think you said teenagers, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, our kid one time, this did happen, and he was upset and he was going to move out, and we said, okay, go ahead. Like I said, he was 16, and he was like, well, wasn't expecting that. What? And I said, hey, if you can do this better somewhere else, then there's the door, because we have a set of rules and you're not going to pass them. And those rules that you're trying to bring into our house aren't going to work. So you've talked to your dad, you've talked to me, and he was ready to go out the door, and he turned around and came back up and went into his room and closed the door. He was pretty upset. Then it opened the door to talk. I know that kids today might walk out the door, and because I've heard it. But at the same time, when they're a teenager, they can do things that I don't know that we can. I guess I need a little bit of guidance from you. It's been a few years.
Here's one thing. I'm going to go to the fire service. Maybe you're familiar
Yeah.
with some of this. I don't know if you are, Matt. But there's two segments, main segments in the fire service. Very big, huge segment, fire suppression. And there's also fire prevention, different bureau. Those are the non-24-hour guys, okay? And their job was to go into buildings and factories and stuff and look for hazards and also to prevent the fire from happening. As a guideline, and we'd received advice from a high school
yes.
principal
That was,
and who was a Christian and became our school superintendent for a while also. And we kind of asked him before our kids hit the teenage years, how should we approach it? This is new to us. We've never been here before. And he says, you know what? Make fences.
Yep.
Not literal fences. Give them parameters. These are the guidelines we're going to set up. You can make decisions as you grow older within this parameter. For instance, dances. Okay, you can go to proms and other school functions. Private parties are not within those parameters. So don't even
for
ask
our
us.
house.
For our home. So for our home, it was like, don't even ask. Because we don't know if the parents are going to be there or not. I know you're going to say everything's good. It's just a birthday party. Whatever, okay? That's not happening. Really? Nope, not happening. Want to go to the prom? That's something else, okay? So we set up, in a way, preventing some maybe ugly occurrences to happen down the road because kids will be kids, especially teenagers. So I guess maybe that's one thing that how
Yep.
we approach those years especially.
And they said also in the counseling that we received is oddly enough some of those parameters that you're gonna he gave us two different lines, and one of them being the closer they got to us, they were able to be able to do things right away, but out here when we're ready to let go and let them experiment and do things on their own, make sure that you're careful when you let them do those things, but that they start making some of those decisions on their own. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And really, they're still in your parameter. They're still, but you're letting them go little by little. And so we thought about it for a while, and I said, could you give us an example? And he used,
I did. I told him how much time you got. I'll try to make this short.
yeah,
5 minutes or less.
I said, do you remember when you learned to ride a bike? I told him all this at some point in time. Do you remember when you learned to ride a bike? And when you first learned to ride out in the street and everything, we finally took the training wheels off, okay? And you're going to learn to ride a two-wheeler. You're anxious to do it, I know, okay? And there I was, running with you, holding on to that little hook thing in the back. I forget what they call that. They had a name for it. It's a banana seat, and it had a little ring in the back. And I'd hold on to that. And I'd maybe let go, and I'd say, okay,
keep
get
pedaling.
the feel, keep pedaling and stuff, get some motion going. And then when they get a little wobbly, I'd grab that thing, okay? But there was a time where we were going down that street, and you didn't know it, but I let go. And I watched you go, and you had it. And all I did now was cheer you on and encourage you because you were riding a bike on your own. And in a way, that's what we do in parenting. When it comes to certain, depending on their ages, we're there's a time to let go, but there's a time to hold on so that they don't get hurt.
Right.
They don't get hurt, so.
What your kid is like at 4 years old, he's going to be exactly the same at 16 if you don't deal with the issues. Only he's going to have a 16-year-old body. And so Yoli and Dave have both been talking about discipline early in a kid's life. And it's to train them to be able to act, frankly, in a civilized manner. People, when they start out, they're not, they're little barbarians. Little kids are little barbarians. They do what they want to do, and they do they'll do whatever they can get away with the people around them, and that's not going to make for a good life later on. And so you have to restrain kids and teach them the way that they're supposed to go. And so, if you're doing that early, then the teenage years are gonna be easier. They're not going to be easy, but they're going to be easier. And then when they're a teenager, up until the time, when they're little kids, then spankings are appropriate and that kind of thing. And the older that they get, there are different consequences to the things that you do in life. And so jobs and driving a car, and there are things that people want to do and parts of their life that they want to have, that if they don't do the right thing in a situation, then those things get taken away. And so, it's important that, what I did was when my kids got older, they got natural consequences to things. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't enter in and do things. You guys know Corinda, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Corinda was a girl that lived with us, and I like to give this story because she doesn't mind, and it's a long time ago. She was a girl that lived with us when my wife and I were younger. We didn't have any kids, and she was in my high school group. Well, she got kicked out by her dad, and it was not going to be good. So she came to my home, and I said, you can live here as a renter, or you can live here as family. And she goes, well, I can't pay rent. And I go, well, that just leaves family. And so that means you're going to do what I say. And, I let her know that you need to be going to school. And if you don't go to school, then there are going to be consequences. She had a card, and I just told her what the parameters were. You need to be in school. If you don't go to school, I'm taking the car away, and you're going to ride the bus. And so one day I'm down at the Bear City Market at the intersection there, and there goes Corinda driving by in her car, and I just waved at her, and she came home, and I disabled her car, and took the parts that were needful. Yeah. And I hid them away. And she said, well, can I have my friends take me? I go, no. The deal was, car's taken away, you're going to go on the bus. And so now you don't have a car, and so your transportation to school is the bus. And she goes, well, what if I don't take the bus? What if I have my friends? And she just would telegraph these things. Yeah. And I said, well, if you don't do that, then what's going to happen is I'm just going to take you to school myself. And I'm going to walk you to each one of your classes. She goes, well, you have a job. And I go, I love you. And so I can take some time off, and I'll walk you to every one of your classes. And obviously they don't want me walking to them to every. She didn't want that. And so she got on the bus, and it was for, I think it was a month is what we did. I made her go on the bus for a month. And first day on the bus, she's like a junior. No, she's a senior. She was a senior in high school getting on the bus, and there's nobody on there but freshmen and sophomores. Right. And she goes to climb up on the bus with all her books, and she trips on the top step, and her books go flying down the aisle. First time. And she comes home, and she tells me, and I'm just laughing my head off. And it's like, it's just consequences. And so you don't, you let them grow up a little bit, and as they begin stepping out in certain areas, there are natural consequences to bad behavior that
for all of our life.
Right, and you can use those, and so you have to be watching, and I don't want to say creative, because I don't want to just create things, but you have to be watching for what would the consequences be in this situation if this kid was out on their own, and try to bring that stuff in, and if you have a wise child, then they learn from the consequences.
Just a postscript on that. We've known Corinda and her family. Her husband, Tom, he just retired, managed the airport district up there. They live in the high desert, and she loves the Lord.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A lot.
that's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. God's blessed her.